Well, it is so good to see all of you here. I wanted to, it's January and it's the beginning of a new year. And it's a great opportunity whenever that happens for us to take stock of our lives. To look at our lives and ask the question, is my life, am I making a difference with my life? Is my life making a difference? How many of you ever seen that old movie, It's a Wonderful Life? How many of you seen it? Yeah. He gets to see the impact his life has made. I think we need to do that for ourselves and ask ourselves, if I wasn't here, would anybody notice? Would the world notice? Oh, sure, my family would miss me, but would the world miss me? Am I making any kind of an impact? Because let's be honest, we all want our lives to be meaningful. We all want our lives to have that impact on the world. But too often, we are simply living a life of aimlessness. Never accomplishing anything of value, anything of worth. We're mostly existing. And here's the thing, is when you aim at nothing, you're going to hit it every time. So here's what I want to suggest to you, that we need a vision for our life. We need a vision. Now, what is a vision? A vision is simply this. It's a picture of what the future could look like. However, vision is more than simply what could be. After all, what could be is simply an idea or a dream. Vision also carries with it a sense of conviction. It's not just simply what could be, but this is what should be. If I do something, this is what should happen. It's something that must happen. It moves us from passive concern to action. A vision always requires someone to champion the cause. It takes someone who is willing to put his or her neck on the line. Someone who has the courage to act on the idea. There's some great men and women throughout history that had a vision. They saw something and they were like, this is what could be. This is what should be. And then they stepped out and they did something about it. Martin Luther King Jr., I love he says, I had a dream. His dream was that races would intermingle and be equal, right? They would have equal rights. And he stepped up and he did something about it. That was his vision. Just this last week, I saw someone that I hadn't seen for a while, but there is a ministry that was birthed here in Modesto called Without Permission. Anybody know that ministry, Without Permission? I love that story of how she came to that ministry. Here she was, a normal church lady, just like you, well, some of you are men, but, just like you, she was a normal church person, and she's sitting there, and she hears about all of the sex trafficking that's going on in our nation. And it begins to break her heart and burden her heart. And so she decides to do something about it. And out of that vision is birthed this ministry. Do you know that the law enforcement officials literally call her, she's the expert on how to help them to get these ladies out of this situation. They call her. She's the expert. It all started with a vision. She was sitting there and she knew this is not how it should be, and this is how it could be if I'll do something about it. We all need a vision. Today we're starting a new series called Vision Mapping. And this series reveals to us how to get a vision for our life and then what to do with it. So let me start off by saying this. There's basically two ways to get a vision. Number one is you come up with a vision for yourself, right? You decide, I'm going to create a vision for my life. But here's the problem with that, is that oftentimes when we come up with a vision for ourselves, it's very self-centered. It's very self-centered. Here's a vision that I see a lot of people living out for their life, okay? To make as much money as I can and then retire. To pay off all my debt so that I can spend more time with the grandchildren, right? Wonderful dream, right? But it's not making much of an impact, is it? To get married and have a family. Wonderful dreams. All those are great dreams. But where's the impact? Where's the impact? You see, we need to want more from our lives. We were meant for more than this. So here's the second way to get a vision. To let God give you a vision for your life. Listen to this in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. It says this, "For we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus, so we can do the good things He planned for us long ago." God has a plan for your life. A plan He came up with a long time ago. And I think it's about time that we got on His page. That we started to fulfill His dream for us. Why would you want to think up a dream for yourself when God has this amazing dream for you? What could be more fulfilling than fulfilling the very plan that God has for your life? To live a life of significance, we have to have a God-inspired dream. A God-inspired vision. So how do we get God's vision for our life? Well, I'm going to show you that there's a 3-step process that God goes through in giving you a vision for your life. Here it is, and we're going to see it from the life of a man called Nehemiah. Now, let me give you some background. Nehemiah in the Bible is a Jewish man living in Persia. Okay? He was rich, he was powerful, he had it made. Okay? He was super connected. He was literally the cupbearer to the king. Okay? That was like an advisor to the king, but also he was the guy, he would take a drink of the king's drink before the king did, just to make sure it wasn't poisoned, right? So this was a very trusted individual. He was super connected, he was rich, powerful. He was living the good life in Persia. He was a descendant of the captives that were taken from Israel. Basically, Persia conquered Israel and grabbed all these people and brought them back. And he was one of their descendants, right? He grew up in Persia, living the good life. But the king of Persia allowed some of the Israelites to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. But here's the problem. The walls of Jerusalem were torn down. So while the Israelites are trying to rebuild their temple, they are being attacked by every bully in the neighborhood, right? Because they have no defenses. Their walls are torn down. And Nehemiah is bothered by this. And so he decides to do something about it. Let me show you what's going on. Let's read it together. Nehemiah chapter 1, verses 1 through 4. This is what it says. It says, "These are the memoirs of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah. In late autumn, in the month of Kislev, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes' reign, I was at the fortress of Susa. Hanani, one of my brothers, came to visit me with some other men who had just arrived from Judah. I asked them about the Jews who had returned there from captivity and about how things were going in Jerusalem. They said to me, things are not going well for those who return to the province of Judah. They are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem has been torn down, and the gates have been destroyed by fire. Listen to this. He says this, when I heard this, I sat down and wept. In fact, for days I mourned, fasted, and prayed to the God of heaven. Nehemiah was so moved by what he had heard that he wept. Now, Nehemiah wasn't emotionally unstable, right? He wasn't a girly man, okay? I know guys, some of you are like, we're macho, we don't cry, right? He was that guy too, but something about this affected him. It burdened his heart. These deep feelings were the initial birth pains of a vision that God was birthing in his heart. Notice that Nehemiah's vision didn't start out as a vision. It began as a concern or a burden. His heart was breaking for these people. His heart was breaking for this nation of Israel that he was a descendant from. He was just torn up about it. Let me just say this. A God-ordained vision will always begin as a concern. It's going to begin as a need that burdens your heart. Something that burdens your heart. You'll hear something or see something that gets your attention. Something will bother you so much, it will just stay with you. You'll find yourself thinking about these concerns in your free time. You may lose sleep over it. You won't be able to let it go just because it won't let you go. You'll have this burden. This isn't how it should be. It should be like this. Nehemiah's concern over the condition of Israel consumed him. It broke his heart. This was not just a casual concern. It was a vision in the making. God was putting this on his heart to show him, this is what is, but this is not how it should be. Is there something that God is breaking your heart over? Is there a need or a concern that you're going, man, this isn't how it should be, or this is how it should be? And it's burdening your heart. You know, it doesn't have to be some monumental thing like a Martin Luther King Jr. or even this without permission lady who started that ministry. It may be smaller than that. It may be as simple as seeing young people in our church and maybe going, I'm burdened for these young people. I just feel like they need a touch from God and I want to do something about it. Maybe that's God birthing in your heart a vision to be a part of a ministry for our young people, whether it's children or youth, something like that. Maybe there's something else. Maybe you just have a burden or a passion for people who are homeless, and we have this compassion ministry, and maybe you just need to be a part of it. What is God birthing in your heart? What's He breaking your heart over? Because that's the first step. God begins to break your heart. He begins to put this need in your heart and you just can't get away from it. It bothers you so much. He reveals this need, but then He does something else. Then He gives you the desire to do something about it. Watch what happens with Nehemiah. In Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 1 through 8, it says this, early the following spring, in the month of Nisan, during the 20th year of King Artaxerxes' reign, I was serving the king his wine. I had never before appeared sad in his presence. So the king asked me, why are you looking so sad? You don't look sick to me. You must be deeply troubled. Then I was terrified. Here's why. You don't show up sad in front of the king. To show up sad in front of the king means you might disagree with him. You might be instigating some kind of rebellion. Maybe you're about to assassinate him. There's all kinds of things. You don't show up sad in front of the king. So Nehemiah was terrified. But I replied, "Long live the king! How can I not be sad? For the city where my ancestors are buried is in ruins, and the gates have been destroyed by fire." Then the king asked, "Well, can I help you?" With a prayer to the God of heaven, I replied, "If it pleases the king, and if you are pleased with me, your servant, send me to Judah to rebuild the city where my ancestors are buried." I love this. Nehemiah was a rich man. He was powerful. He was connected. He had fame. He had it made. Yet he was willing to set it all aside because he wasn't satisfied with the status quo. He wasn't satisfied to see his nation that he was descended from in ruins. He was so burdened with this need, he wanted to do something about it. Listen, just seeing the need brings despair and hopelessness. A vision is more than just seeing the need. It's a call to action. It's a stirring in your heart to see what is or what could be or what should be and to do something about it. Are there any needs that you're seeing right now that are stirring your heart? Is God showing you something? You may be seeing it right now as just this problem, this issue that bothers you so much, but maybe that's because God is showing you this because He wants you to do something about it. But maybe you're going, but Pastor, and maybe God wants me to do something about it, but I don't know how. I don't know what. I don't have the resources, the power, the whatever. I'm helpless. Well, listen to me. Here's the third step. God gives you the vision, but then He gives you the help to fulfill it. Listen to this in Nehemiah chapter 2, 1 through 8. It says this: "The king, with the queen sitting beside him, asked, 'How long will you be gone? When will you return?' After I told him how long I would be gone, the king agreed to my request. I also said to the king, 'If it please the king, let me have letters addressed to the governors of the province west of the Euphrates River, instructing them to let me travel safely through their territories on my way to Judah. And please give me a letter addressed to Asaph, the manager of the king's forest, instructing him to give me timber. I will need it to make the beams for the gates of the temple fortress, for the city walls, and for a house for myself.' And the king granted these requests because the gracious hand of God was on me." God provided the way. God provided the way. Let me just say this to you. For Nehemiah to ask all these things was a very bad idea. He was putting his life at risk just by looking sad in front of the king. A servant was never supposed to look sad in front of the king. Also, Nehemiah knew that his request was a bold one because a few years earlier, the king had stopped construction in Judah. He had made an order: stop all construction. We don't want to do that anymore. So what Nehemiah was asking him is, he's saying, I want you to reverse that order. All these problems, all these issues, all these things to be terrified over. Nehemiah could have looked at it and just said, you know what? I don't know how to do this, God. I don't know. It's impossible for me. When God speaks to us, we always ask how. Isn't that right? We always ask how, God. But how is not a problem for God. When God puts something in your heart to do, He goes to work behind the scenes to ensure that it happens. It's not up to us to figure out how to pull off the vision. Our job is simply to do what we know to do and wait for God to do what only He can do. Have you ever read a story in the Bible where God gives someone a vision and then expects them to figure out how to make it happen? Did Moses have to figure out how to cross the Red Sea? No. Did David have to figure out how to get rid of Saul so he could take the throne? No. When Jesus told the disciples to feed those 5,000 people with those few bread and fish, did they have to figure out how to do that? No. You see, we don't have to figure out the how. God will provide the how. Amen. We just have to do what only we can do. Do what you know to do. And never lose sight of the vision. Let God take care of the how. Don't let the question of how stop you from being obedient to God's vision for your life. Some of you, God may be burdening your heart with something and you just keep getting stuck on that how. And God's like, don't worry about that. You let me worry about that. You just take the steps of faith that I put before you, and I'll take care of the how. You just do what you know to do and prepare for God to do the rest. So I'm going to ask you again, is God burdening your heart with something? Is God birthing a vision in your life? Maybe you're going, again, maybe it's not that monumental thing. Maybe it's as simple as I said before. You have this burden for young people, or maybe you have a different burden, and you're like, but you're going, man, I just can't fit it in my schedule. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to talk to young people. Oh my goodness. You know what? Don't worry about the how. You let God worry about that. You just be faithful to what you can do, and you trust Him with the rest. What is God birthing in your heart? Let me tell you something, folks. I don't know why I'm preaching this message today, but there is a reason. I had a whole different plan. Friday rolls around, I had a whole other outline ready to go, or was going to start detailing it out, and I just felt like God speaking to me saying, this is not what I want you to do this week. And I said, okay, what do you want me to do? And He put this on my heart. God is speaking. I believe this. I believe God is speaking. If He's not already speaking to you, He's going to be speaking to you. Are you listening? Is He burdening your heart with something, saying, this shouldn't be, or it should be like this? And you're broken over it, or you're breaking over it. Are you listening to that? Let me say this to you. If that isn't happening to you, if you don't have that vision, then you especially need to be praying for that. You need to say, God, I want that. I want a vision for my life. I don't want to just exist. I want to live with significance. I want to make my life count for something. To be valuable. I don't want to wake up and go, why did I waste all this time? Why did I waste all this resources? Why is my life just so just not impacting? Don't be that person. Seek God for a vision for your life. And allow Him to work through you in amazing ways. Can I just tell you, it is amazing to watch people when they say yes to God. When God bursts something in their heart and they say yes to Him and they start taking those steps and watching as God does amazing things through their life. It's happened to me so many times. Me just being here is me saying yes to God. And God birthing something in my heart. I could have been a whole different thing. I could have been something other than a pastor. But God burst something in my heart. And I said yes. I didn't know how. I didn't know how it was going to work, but I trusted Him. You need to do the same. God, what do you want for me? What do you want for my life?